Welcome back to the show. I'm Daisy Cousens. Now, if there's one thing I think pretty much everyone who watches this program will agree, is that there are too many lefties on local councils. From motions to move citizenship ceremonies to days other than Australia Day, to Drag Queen Story Hour at public libraries, even in the city of Sydney, a push to change the wording of plaques on historical statues of figures like Governor Arthur Phillip to something suitably self-effacing, left-wing ideology is alive and well in local government. It's fortunate then that there are local councillors like Cumberland's Steve Christou, who has not only spoken out against Drag Queen Story Hour, he wants to ditch Welcome to Country ceremonies and is currently joining with other Sydney city councillors to block using taxpayer dollars to fund a 3-day rainbow festival in the town of Orange in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Steve, welcome to the program. It is so fantastic to have you here. How are you this evening?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on the program.
No, it is so lovely to have you. And I'm so keen to hear about your work with the council. Now, look, Steve, I have to ask you, why does the government feel comfortable allocating this large a sum? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about $125,000 to a social event, which is a greatly sexualised one at that, when families and households are struggling to make ends meet?
Quite simply put, it's because they're out of touch. They live in a bubble. They've never actually lived in the real world where people have had to get up at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work, struggle to pay the mortgage, the rent, the bills, and put food on the table to feed their children. Unfortunately, a lot of the bureaucrats that are running the government and the MPs and ministers have either been rolled out from a political party or fresh out of uni or worked in an electorate office. They have no idea of the struggles that real people face, and therefore they think that when they sit around their coffee table and they do their acknowledgement to country at 10 o'clock in the morning, then they proceed to say, hey, let's have a rainbow festival at Orange or Cumberland or wherever they might dream up to have a rainbow festival or such a wake event.
I think out of touch is a very good way of putting it. And now, look, there will be people who will counter your argument not to have this rainbow festival. I mean, you'll, of course, get people calling you a bigot. We all do, which is obviously not true. That's the lazy argument they use. But some people will point out that, say, Mardi Gras events are actually very popular. They draw a lot of people to the town, which would in turn generate quite a lot of local business. Now, how would you counter that argument?
Well, I'd say the reverse. It does the reverse. Why not unite the town? Take out the word rainbow and have the Orange Festival. The country town of Hay, which our council visits once a year, they do the annual Hay Festival, their annual Hay races, and they attract people from all over our local country towns, and it's a big day and you're actually uniting the community. Why would you want to divide the community and only have half of the community turn up in a country town of roughly 44,000 people? Some will agree with a rainbow festival, the other half won't. Why not unite and say, this is the Orange Festival, let's get behind it, let's market it properly, let's throw some dollars behind Orange and some much needed income for people that are actually struggling to pay the mortgage, the rent, the bills, and put food on the table to feed their children. And you'll find that they'll most likely have a very successful event.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it. Have a whole of town festival, maybe include a rainbow element. If there are people who want a rainbow element, that's fine, but don't sort of divide the town ideologically. Because the thing about Mardi Gras, for instance, I used to go to Mardi Gras in Sydney sometimes. I used to love it. You know, there's lots of art and dance and all that kind of stuff. But it has become very politically motivated in the last few years. It's become very, very woke. Do you think that is one of the main problems with having a rainbow festival? It pushes a political ideology rather than just the spirit of being inclusive?
Absolutely. And let's all remember that the Mardi Gras movement started in the late 70s as a protest movement so gay people can have equal rights and be acknowledged. In 2024, we have that. Gay people have equal rights. They're able to get married. They're able to will each other their houses, their super upon death. So now it's just become political activism by the woke left, trying to force down an ideology down our throats.
Yes, and I think people get very, very frustrated with that. And we certainly saw that with the defeat of the Voice referendum last year. That was a different political ideology, but look, still an ideology. Now, look, Steve, city councils, I always think, have three primary concerns, and they are roads, rates and rubbish. So what is this council doing getting involved in social matters?
Unfortunately, you're getting a lot of political activists, professional opportunists that think local councils are their stepping stone to state or federal politics, or better still, the United Nations. And quite frankly, local councils are not the place for such ideologies. A lot of councils now have become super councils. They're not the councils of yesteryear, where they represented 50, 60, 70,000 people. Councils today, the big ones, are representing 250,000 people, 300,000 people, 350,000 people. With that comes big budgets. And unfortunately, you're getting these political opportunists and activists that think they sit on a United Nations panel, thinking they can just, they rule the world, where really their ideas and ideologies are irrelevant.
Yeah, I think we get that a lot. As I said in my intro, there just aren't enough Conservatives on local councils. I think Conservatives are often, I don't know, interested in doing other things. It's a shame, but you certainly are not. You're very, very active as a councillor, and you've actually stood up against wokeism before. And one thing you've been very successful at is combating drag queen story time. Can you tell us about your success with that?
Absolutely. At our local government state conference in November, when 150 odd councils would get together, you would think they would discuss cost of living crisis and how they're going to help their communities. But no, it was a whole talk fest on gender neutral toilets, story reading time, and paying staff 6 weeks extra paid leave on top of their 4 weeks annual leave if they want to have a sex change. And this is pathetic. This is not representing your community, not what councillors are there for or what councils are designed to do. So I decided to draw a line, and I took this motion back to Cumberland City Council at the first opportunity in February of this year and said, we're not going to cop this. Even though local government conference might have endorsed this and are encouraging drag story reading time, we know our community. They're a very conservative community. 62% of the population were born overseas, a very religious community, regardless of background, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, wherever they come from. And originally it was knocked out by the Australian Labor Party. They were very arrogant about it. Were called bigots, religious nuts. All the names, councillors and elected representatives here when they actually represent and defend their community against the woke left. Well, that gave us a week to marshal on social media and on media and get the community behind us. And at the very next meeting, a week after, 300 residents stormed the council chambers and on the streets and made their opinions very loud and clear. And in a spectacular backflip, most of the Labor councillors actually reversed their decision after constant heckling from their community during the council meeting, when they were told they're not going to be voted in September because they're going against their values as a community, and they even threw their mayor under the bus with a dissent vote, some of them.
Wow, that is fantastic to hear that you are doing such good work. And I have to ask, just quickly before we go, why don't more Conservatives join, try to run for local council? And what would you say to Conservatives who maybe think it might be a good idea?
Look, just stand up for your beliefs. Don't let the left control your agenda and your beliefs. For too long, good people have stayed silent, just saying not to rock the boat. And, they're concerned for repercussions, because when you stand up, they do try to shut you down. They lodge code of conducts on you. They make complaints. They make your life miserable. But stand up for your beliefs. Be true for what you represent, and you'll find a large portion of the community will get behind you, because the majority actually agree with you. Stop being silent to the 10% woke activists.
I think that is very, very well said. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, Steve Christou, for joining me on the show tonight, and all the very, very best with your endeavours as a councillor.
Thank you for having us.
Well, that's all we've got time for tonight on the Daisy Cousens Show. I do hope you enjoyed the program as much as I've enjoyed hosting it. Make sure you tune in next week and every week for more of the latest news from around the globe.